CNN will reportedly put on more Trump campaign surrogates in the months to come. And it's not just CNN. Last month, Trump...
Boy, he's upset. CNN's going to cover the news. There's a guy running for president who might become president, and CNN are going to interview those people.
That's bad journalism. You only interview people I like.
You're only supposed to interview people we like, and you're supposed to censor everybody else. This is what he's upset about, is that CNN plans on covering the leading candidate for president in the Republican Party. That's what he's upset about. Oh, this is Himmler shit, man. This is Goebbels stuff. This is crazy.
This is that guy in Rwanda who was like, cut the tall trees. That's what he is.
But what Jimmy said was hilarious. They're just doing the intro there. Because I'm going to show you guys some liberal meltdown as they do the intro filler. Like, imagine being afraid of giving a platform to someone like Donald Trump. I explained to you guys when we did our segment of liberals melting down over Trump's town hall, that they are afraid because they don't want Trump to pull the whataboutism, which he will use to destroy the Democrats like he did last time. Remember when he was accused of rape and then he brought Bill Clinton's rape accuser there? He exposes their hypocrisy, even though he's exposed as well. So look at this tweet, and we get to the video. CNN town hall is a mistake. Trump, a superb propagandist, is built for such occasions. He has primed the public with victimization, witch hunt narratives. So the reason why you guys are afraid people to hear from him, because you guys know a lot of the things you guys are charging Trump on is 100% political. You guys don't want to hear you don't want people to hear any other opposing opinion, even though he's a leading candidate for president. All right, damn, the video starts. Let's get started to the video.
Sure that you were dominating the Republican race right now, but you were also under active federal investigation for trying to overturn the 2020 election results. Your first term ended with a deadly riot at the Capitol, and you still have not publicly acknowledged the 2020 election results. Why should Americans put you back in the White House?
Because we did fantastically. We got 12 million more votes than we had in, as you know, in 2016. I actually say we did far better in that election.
Hillary and Democrats
the most that anybody's ever gotten as a sitting president of the United States. I think that when you look at that result and when you look at what happened during that election, unless you're a very stupid person, you see what happens. A lot of the people in this audience, and maybe a couple that don't, but most people understand what happened. It was a rigged election, and it's a shame that we had to go through it. It's very bad for our country. All over the world, they looked at it, and they saw exactly what everyone else saw. Even if you just look recently with the 51 intelligence agents, that made a 16-point difference. If you look at the FBI, and Twitter, they call it Twitter files, made a big difference. If you look at
Mr. President, back to what you just said there, though, it was not a rigged election. It was not a stolen election. You and your supporters lost more than 60 court cases on the election. It's been nearly 2.5 years. Can you publicly acknowledge that you did lose the 20?
Now, I don't believe the MAGA talking points that this election was rigged against Donald Trump. Like, these capitalists, they have no reason to rig this. I don't see the evidence of that. But it's hilarious how Democrats pretend Trump is uniquely evil for denying the results of an election, even though Hillary Clinton and Democrats loudly proclaimed that Russians stole the election from Hillary Clinton. I gotta be careful because I don't want to get my channel pulled. But I remember it was common knowledge that when you look at the 2000 election, George W. Bush stole that from Al Gore. So you can't even say that anymore, according to these people.
2020 election.
Let me just go on. If you look at True the Vote, they found millions of votes on camera, on government cameras, where they were stuffing ballot boxes. So with all of that, I think it's a shame that what happened. I think it's a very sad thing for our country. I think it's a very sad thing, frankly, for the world, because if you look at what's gone to our country has gone to hell. Our borders are bad. Our military has been bad. You look at the taxes, you look at inflation, what's happened to inflation. It's just destroying our country. We've really become, in many ways, a third world country. And it's very sad what's happened in this administration. And it's something that will turn around one day.
See, I would say we are a third world country because the record amount of poverty, massive income inequality, millions of people are homeless, 70,000 plus Americans die each year because they don't have health care. Our infrastructure is rated as an F. majority of Black and Latino people feel like their water is being poisoned because our infrastructure is so bad. That is what I would view as a third world country. But it's funny that Trump is like, we are a third world country because I didn't win the office of the most powerful position that there is. It's pathetic. I'll continue.
Day one, we were energy independent. Now energy is at a level that we've never had to pay before. Nobody can afford to continue to pay what's happening with energy, but we were energy independent. We were getting out of Afghanistan with strength and with dignity, and instead we got out, we looked like fools, probably the most embarrassing moment in the history of our country.
We have a lot of questions about the economy and foreign policy tonight, but what you just said there, Republican officials debunked those claims about fraudulent ballots. We want to give you a chance tonight.
Who?
Republican officials in Georgia and every single state. There is no your own election officials, Mr. President. So we wanted to give you a chance.
People were afraid to take on the issue, but we have a big problem in this country. We
wanted to give you a chance to acknowledge
we have
the
elections
results
that were horrible. If you look at what happened in Pennsylvania, Philadelphia, if you look at what happened in Detroit, Michigan, if you look at what happened in Atlanta, millions of votes, and all you have to do is take a look at government cameras. You'll see them, people going to 28 different voting booths to vote, to put in 7 ballots apiece.
So, Mr. President, I have to stop you there because there is no evidence of that. Your own election officials testified to that and have said that Republicans in these states did this. In Georgia, there were multiple recounts, including a hand recount. We have questions about the claims that you're making tonight from voters on this topic. I want to bring in Scott Dustin from Concord. He works in insurance litigation. He's an undeclared voter. That's what they call independents here in New Hampshire, as you know. He did vote for you in 2020. Scott, what's your question for the president?
Hi, President Trump. Welcome back to New Hampshire.
Thank you.
Will you suspend polarizing talk of election fraud during your run for president?
Will I suspend, excuse me, what?
Will you suspend polarizing talk of election fraud during your run for president?
Yeah, unless I see election fraud. If I see election fraud, I think I have an obligation to say it. And you know what we went through a short while ago has really put.
This is why CNN is garbage. Imagine you have a chance to ask Trump any question. This is the person that is leading candidate to be president, the person who was just president, and this is the question you ask him? Fuck out of here. I am a strong believer that these questions are planted. No one can convince me otherwise.
Our country in a big problem. I hope to do that. I hope we're going to have very honest elections. We should have voter ID. We should have one-day elections. We should have paper ballots instead of these mail-in votes. But the answer is yes, and I hope that it's going to be very straight up, because if it's going to be straight up, we're going to win the election.
So you will suspend talk to his question about the 2020 election on the campaign trail?
I guess we're going to just win. We're at a point now, we're getting so close. Let's just win it again and straighten out our country.
One other question on this. When you've talked about the 2020 election results in the past, you once suggested terminating the Constitution. Do you stand by those comments?
No. You were able to do certain things. I'm not talking about terminating the Constitution. I'm talking about cherishing the Constitution. The Constitution says that we're supposed to have legal and well-maintained and well-looked-at elections, and we didn't have that. I cherish our Constitution, but we have to live up to the Constitution. We weren't living up to the Constitution.
I was just saying there's no evidence of that election fraud. You did once tweet.
You're supposed to say that, but I'm glad you say that. But look,
That's
that was a horrible election. That was a horrible election. And unless somebody's very stupid, and I know you very well, you're not stupid at all, but you perhaps are given an agenda, or you have an agenda. Look, we have to have honest elections in our country. We have open borders. We have
honest elections means I must always win.
Very clear that you are very influential over them. You have a lot of impact. I've been to many of your rallies and seen it up close, which raised a lot of questions about the influence that we saw that you had on them on January 6th and your supporters when they attacked the Capitol. Do you have any regrets about your actions on January 6th?
I can't wait to hear this answer, but CJ, my brother, brings up a great point. This will be CNN's best rated show in all 2023 and 2022. So this is why CNN was super excited to do this. And this is why, despite all the backlash they got from shitless, they're like, bro, we can't wait till Trump get back into play, man. We've been dying over here under Biden.
Well, January 6th was, again, we go back to it, but January 6th had to do with the fact that hundreds of thousands of people, and you don't see the pictures very often. A lot of the people here probably were there. January 6th, it was the largest crowd I've ever spoken to. That was prior to the walk down to the Capitol building. I don't think, and I've spoken to hundreds of thousands of people. I've never spoken to a crowd as large as this. And that was because they thought the election was rigged. And they were there proud. They were there with love in their heart. That was an unbelievable, and it was a beautiful day. And what I was asked to do, I wasn't involved in it very much. I was asked to come in, would I make a speech? I made a speech. I said, walk peacefully and patriotically, many different things. In fact, I brought a list of things. I don't want to bore the audience, but we can go sentence after sentence after sentence of things I said and things I put out. One of the big problems was that Nancy Pelosi, Crazy Nancy, as I affectionately call her, Crazy Nancy Pelosi and the mayor of Washington were in charge, as you know, of security. And they did not do their job. They're not in charge of the National Guard.
You're in charge of the
They
National
are in.
Guard.
Well, I offered them National Guard. I said, we'll give you soldiers, we'll give you National Guard, we'll give you whatever you want. And they turned me down.
You're
And in
acting
fact, she
defense
turned me down.
secretary.
She turned me down in writing. They turned me down.
But your acting defense secretary, Chris Miller, at the time, he says you never gave a formal order to deploy the National Guard. But when it came to that day,
just the opposite. Chris
testified.
Miller wrote a book, and he's a fantastic guy, and he was ready to go. They turned him down. If you look, the mayor of Washington, D.C., lovely lady, she said, we don't want it. We don't like the look. Nancy Pelosi said, oh, we don't like the look. If they would have had I offered them 10,000 soldiers. I said, it could be 10, it could be more, but I offered them specifically 10,000 soldiers. If they would have.
Hey, CJ, man, I think you're right, man. Dude, Trump was horrible, in terms of verbal dialogue in 16 and 20. Dude, imagine Trump debating Biden now. Trump is extremely well coached right now. I don't agree with anything he's saying, but I see way more focus. I see a much more game plan, battle hardened Trump now than I seen in 2016, 2020. Let me know if you agree in the chat. Trump has his talking points, he's super ready to go. And as CJ and Harlan's media saying, he controlling the conversation. CJ said he believed there's no way Biden could beat Trump. And then when you see this, and when you see the fact that Biden's afraid of the press, he don't hold press conferences, he stumbles all the time, and Trump is about to fuck this guy up, man, if they debate. Unfortunately, we all know Trump is a liar. Everything he says is a lie, but everything Joe Biden says is a lie. So it's going to be a competition between two liars, right? And then it's going to be whoever the most persuasive, whoever the most charismatic liar, and Biden about to get tossed. So CJ, you might have been right, dude.
Taken 500 soldiers, you wouldn't have the problem. They turned it down. And if you look at the Inspector General report, he says they turned it down. They made a terrible mistake.
Well, Chris Miller was your acting defense secretary. He says you never gave that order. But back to what happened on that day.
He
You said
did
you
not
weren't.
say that.
He has testified that, Mr.
He
President.
did not say that.
But you said you weren't very involved that day. You did tell your supporters to come to Washington. You tweeted about it, about
Sure,
that
of
speech
course.
that happened on the rally.
Am I allowed to say that?
When they went to the Capitol and they were breaking into the Capitol, smashing windows, injuring police officers, why did it take you 3 hours to tell them to go home?
I don't believe it did. Oh, let me pull it out. I have to pull it out.
Do you guys think that Trump is cooking her? Leave a comment. Do you I'm trying, I see this conversation. It seems like this is not going well for her, but tell me what you think, guys. Tell me what you think.
So if you look at on January 5th, the day before, I said, please support our Capitol Police and law enforcement. They are truly on the side of our country. Stay peaceful. Stay peaceful. This was the day before, and this was in the form of Twitter. Now I use Truth Social. I think it's far superior. Okay. I hope everybody's on Truth. If you look, January 6th, this is before 2:30. I am asking for everyone at the U.S. Capitol to remain peaceful. This is right after, as it was happening. But what happened is they took it down. I don't know why. I think they took it down because it was so good. They didn't like it being up there. I am asking, and we didn't know until I got it back, because now I have 90 million people waiting for me to go back, but I'm on Truth and I'm staying on Truth. Listen, I am asking for everyone at the U.S. Capitol to remain peaceful. No violation. We want no violation. We want no violence.
Biden,
remember, we are the party of law and order. Respect the law and our great men and women in blue. Thank you. That was at 2:30. That was very early.
Mr. President, I looked at the same timeline that you did.
No,
once
no,
it was
but you
clear,
didn't report that. You know why? Because it was
we did
taken
report it.
down.
I was
It
reporting
was
that day.
taken down and it wasn't.
But when
put
it was
back up.
clear to you that they were not being peaceful, you saw them rushing the Capitol, breaking windows. They were hitting officers with flagpoles, tasing them, beating them up. When it was clear they weren't being peaceful, why did you wait 3 hours to tell them to leave the Capitol? They listened to you like no one else. You know that.
They do.
Sooner.
Nancy Pelosi and the mayor are in charge. I assume they were able to do their job. They weren't.
But
And it
Pelosi's
kicked
not in
in.
charge of
And
Capitol
if you remember,
security.
I made a video right outside the Oval Office in the Rose Garden. And I'm very proud of that video. I didn't have a script. I don't need scripts like a certain person that's in
But what
there
time?
right now.
The video. It came out much later after they had already.
So I don't like Trump. I find him deeply unimpressive. But the reason why I think Trump is destroying her, I see a lot of people agree in the chat, is because the only people who's gonna listen to this liberal reporter and be influenced are other liberals. There are no one on the fence. There's no independents. There's no one who don't already buy into every single Democratic Party dogma that's gonna say, "Oh my God, January 6th. Oh my God, this bullshit." No one gives a shit unless you're already a Democrat. That's why this town hall is not gonna be effective. It is funny. Let's continue. I'm gonna keep my interruption minimal, guys.
It was a great video, and it was a beautiful video. And it said, I mean, I don't want to read it all, but you have to go home now. We have to have peace. We have to have law and order. We have to respect our great people of law and order. We love the people of law and order. We can't play into the hands of these other people. We have to have peace. Please go home. I said that.
Referring
You know
to
what
the
they
law and
did?
order there,
They took
Mr.
that
President.
down. And you know, to this day, it hasn't been put up. And the reason is it's so good and so conclusive that all of this nonsense and all of that
Now you
tens
guys
of
see why
millions
they're
of
scared.
dollars that have been spent are just wiped away with this one. And they've never put it back up. They had another one that they did the same
But that
thing.
video that you referenced there, it wasn't posted until 4:17 p.m.
No, I'll tell
They
you,
breached the Capitol at 2 p.m.
That video was
Mr. President.
posted,
4:17
yeah,
p.m.
before, actually a little bit before that.
Right. So that's my question.
Excuse
Because
me.
in that 3 hours, over
Excuse me,
140
it was
officers
posted
were
after the
injured.
first one I just read, though, and that was at 2 o'clock.
But I think
Now she seems so desperate because generally in these town halls, you're supposed to interview them. She knows she is getting cooked. So she's overcompensating. She's talking more, like she's trying to talk more than the candidate. She's trying to talk more than the candidate. Because she knows she's being cooked, man. This is not a good look. This is going to be bad for her career. Like, liberals going to be very mad at her after this.
I think the reason the timeline is so critical here, because going back to your influence, in
Here's
that
another
3
one I
hours,
posted.
over 140 officers were injured that day.
And a person named Ashley Babbitt was killed.
Yes.
You know what? She was killed, and she shouldn't have been killed. And that thug that killed her, there was no reason to shoot her. At blank range, cold blank range, they shot her. And she was a good person. She was a patriot.
One
There was
person
no
who was
reason
there-
there was no reason. And he went on television to brag about the fact that he killed her.